very accurate statement. First moco run on purpose. Because when you're blind, you don't always do runs on purpose. Sometimes you just accidentally find yourselves in runs and you're like, oh, how did I get here? All right, I guess we're doing this now. So it's, I don't know, I'm assuming most of you see, it was up on 5. It's formerly known as Dewdrop, but I'm renaming it to Hail Smash because it sounds way more aggressive and, super cool. So what's harder than dew, right? Hail, and smashing is better than dropping. So Hail Smash, you should all give it a shot. It's on 5. But yeah, I'm super excited to be able to talk just a little bit about TASP, Telluride Adaptive, because it has not only changed my life, it has changed the lives of many of my closest friends, as well as obviously thousands of other people with all different disabilities, not just blind people like I am. So in case there are any blind people in the audience, I am standing here with a white cane. This is how I navigate the world. I feel like what's all around me, and the purpose of the cane is to hit everything. And that's how you know where things are, right? So, especially for people with disabilities, adaptive sports organizations like TASP is so important because, unfortunately, my story is very similar to that of many other people, where I had no idea that blind people could do sports growing up, right? Like, I wrote papers and essays about sports instead of doing gym class, which, as a 12-year-old kid in middle school, it's like, we could be doing better, right? So I didn't realize that blind people could run up until my later years, maybe like 10 years ago. And I remember the first community that I found where I actually met other blind people, right? And the kind of the theme of everything is community, finding community of like-minded and like-ability people, right? The first example of that is, I'm from New York City. In New York City, there's a music school for the blind, and that's where I met my 2 current roommates. They are both blind. I didn't make them blind, just so we're clear. They came that way when I met them, just in case there's any confusion. And I was probably 15 years old, and one of my roommates, who was also out here skiing, his name is Andrew, it was the first time we were walking together. Now, he didn't realize that I was totally blind. He thought I had some sight because of the confidence, right? Because, you can't fake it until you make it, right? And so he's holding onto my arm, we're walking on the streets of New York City, and I slam him straight into a glass bus shelter. Like, you could hear that down the road, right? It was loud. Not one of my finest moments. But we're gonna spin that into a positive, inclusion story by basically, that was the first time I met other blind people, which is crazy to think, but that's true. And also, that was the first time where I did something so crazy, like slam another blind person into a glass bus shelter. But then we all sat around the lunch table, a bunch of blind people, we all laughed about it, we all joked about it, and like, oh wow, this is the first example of a community of people that actually understands where I'm coming from and is like me, right? So that was number one. Now, a couple years later, I'm doing grocery shopping in the grocery store because that's what everyone does. And this random person came up to me, never met him before in my life, and he taps me on the shoulder and he says, hey, you're blind. You should join this running group. It's called Achilles. And I said, sure. Because I don't know if you all know, in New York City, if random people come up to you and talk to you and try to recruit you to things, it's usually either something like cult related or, cruel and unusual. And so I was a little dubious, but I came home, I Googled it. I'm like, oh, this is a real organization. And so I showed up in the park, in Central Park in New York City. And that was the first time I met not only other blind people, but other people with disabilities. Athletes with traumatic brain injuries, amputees, spinal cord injuries, all different disabilities, all doing the same thing. And that was my second unlock of like, okay, this is such a cool community because it's a micro community within a bigger city, right? And it just opens up your mind on what is possible when you see other people who have the same condition as you doing epic things that you never thought was possible, right? And that brings me to the third community that I found most recently, which is TASP. And so I had the great fortune to come out to TASP for the first time in January of 2021. It was about 5 years ago. And that was the first time I ever skied. And it's very interesting because a part of TASP that I think is not spoken about a lot, but that actually sticks out to me quite a bit, is every morning, me and my friends that now come out to TASP and other students, we all meet up in the TASP office. And it is just a room full of people, all there doing the same mission to increase accessibility, right, for snow sports. We're all there putting on our ski boots or snowboard boots for people who can't ski. Little shade, sorry. But yeah, boots, equipment, we're pairing the radio headsets together, we're like setting up all the gear, and it's just people with all different disabilities, plus volunteers, plus staff, all aligned in the same mission, all working together, all, you could feel the excitement, right, because we're all about to hit the slopes, and that is just such a core memory that I keep throughout the year and look forward to for the next time I'm at task. And so, for me, obviously I grew up blind, I didn't know what skis were. And so the first time I came out, I remember I was on the snow with my ski instructor from task, and she literally was like, okay, you don't look like you know what you're doing. I'm gonna hold the ski up in front of you and you just feel it from tip to tip. And I had thought that skis were like tennis rackets, honestly, because when you hear it described, it's like, well, why would I stand on a narrow piece of wood? That seems very unsteady. Like, why not something bigger and wider? Because bigger is better and wider. So I thought it was genuinely like tennis rackets that somehow you strap onto shoes and that's how you slide down the hill. I also didn't realize you make turns when you ski. Some of us still don't make turns when we ski. Well, like, I know you're supposed to make turns when you ski. And so all these things, it's such a fascinating thing where like now I'm bringing my blind friends from New York City out to task, and I get to observe them going through the same sort of epiphany moments where it's, if you don't grow up skiing or you have never seen it, you have no concept of what it is. And so task literally takes you from before square one, right? Like literally here's what a ski looks like, all the way to now we're doing harder runs. And it's just such a cool experience. So let me tell you a little bit actually about how blind skiing works, because I didn't know how blind skiing worked. And so you start off on the magic carpet, like everyone else. You tuck, you do the little tuck, the Texas tuck, you send it, right? You seem really cool because the wind's in your face. Also for me, like, I can't necessarily obviously, how fast I'm going. And so I use other cues to kind of point out how fast I'm going. For example, the wind that's in my face, I feel that, and okay, I can kind of tell how fast I'm going. That usually only backfires if there's a headwind, because then I'll be like going down meadows, there's a strong headwind. I think I'm going like 50 miles an hour because it's really strong. And then I put my pole down and I'm like barely inching forward. My guide's just in my ear like, could you like speed up a little bit? Like, you have lunch to me. And so, there are different adaptations and problem-solving skills that we learn on the mountain, right, to sort of basically use those things to navigate what is skiing. And so I have a radio headset in my head. It's connected to my helmet, and my guide is also wearing a radio headset. And that's how my guide is talking to me. The guide's skiing behind me, and they're going, right, left, bump, tree, brace for impact, like all the different cues that I would need to know. They are basically calling out to in my head. And that just kind of brings me to the next thing where it's, we're learning all these skills on the mountain. We're learning problem solving, we're learning trust, we're learning teamwork, how to work with teams, how to communicate quickly, because when you're doing fast runs, like you gotta be able to communicate quickly and also have the other person understand what you're trying to tell them. So it's all these skills that we're learning on the mountain that we're also able to now use in other parts of our lives, right? So, for example, my other roommate, Simon, the other blind one, became blind after meeting me. Anyway, he had severe fear of job interviews, right? As I can imagine, a lot of us can relate. It was after his first time skiing a task, it was 2022, because I came out the first year just by myself, and then the following year I brought out maybe 6 or 7 other friends with disabilities. It was after that week of skiing where he came to me and was like, after skiing, I can go to any interview. And like, I'm not really an emotional person, but I was like, God, okay, I gotta take a minute. This hit hard, right? Because here's this guy who's literally, he just graduated college, didn't have a job, and now he has the confidence to be able to go to any job interviews, get denied, right, regardless of whether it's his skill or because he's blind and preconceived notions and all those other things. But now he has the confidence to do that because, when you're blind and you're at the top of a ski run and you're feeling with your pole in front of you and you don't really feel anything, you don't know if it's like a 2-foot drop or if it's like a plunge on Chair 9 that apparently just opened today, that I'm just learning that right now. But you don't really know, right? And so it's literally fully trust in your own skills and also trust in your guide that, you don't feel what's in front of you, but you're just gonna have to just send it and just see what happens. And for a lot of us, that's just kind of what we have to do, right? So a couple quick things. So for me, the biggest eye-opening moment was last season. I did Bushwhacker for the that was one of the examples of doing a sort of bumpish run, but not on purpose because we didn't see the bumps when we were on the chairlift because of light conditions, so whatever that is, I don't know. Apparently light looks differently at different times of the day. Seems like an excuse by sighted people, but whatever. So we go down, and I don't have enough appendages, fingers or toes, and I'm not an amputee for anyone who's blind in the audience. I don't have enough fingers or toes to count the number of times I fell on that one run. But again, it teaches you, right? You fall, you can either lock up, be really tense and scared and just kind of, bail out, or you just stand up and send it, right? And what's the worst thing that'll happen? You fall, and you stand up and send it again. And that was just, that run was the unlock for me, where I was like, okay, I just need to send it. Whether I'm in life, doing skiing stuff, doing professional stuff, there's nothing, you don't gain anything by not sending it, is my point. Unless you're facing the cliff, but besides that, within reason. And so finally, just a little bit about the group that we brought out. So there are 3 other blind people who come out, and they all ski. One of them is Simon, I told you about, who's now, he's now glad to report gainfully employed for the last several years since he came to task, so kudos to task. We have someone with a traumatic brain injury, and her only requirement for her guide at task is that they have to be able to sing, because she gets a little nervous, but when she sings, she's totally fine. So, sometimes it's Rolling Stones, sometimes it's Lady Gaga, sometimes it's all things, but the guide has to sing. If you ever volunteer a task, which you should all volunteer a task, and you ever get a text and you read a little note saying, what does your athlete prefer? And if you see singing, it's probably this person from New York City. The other part, we also have 2 amputees, which skiing amputees, whole different story. One thing that I like to point out, this kind of adds to trust with the guide, is if you're skiing with someone who's blind, right? None of the slow signs are in Braille. I don't know if you've noticed that. I have touched several slow signs by accident, not on purpose. Not one of them was in Braille. Which means, or how I interpret that to mean, is they don't apply to me, right? So it kind of stresses my guides out, but that's kind of how we roll. So at the end of the day, Telluride Adaptive has completely changed my life. It's changed the lives of my 2 roommates, of my other friends from New York City that we bring out here, and also of all the friends that we have met being out here. It's such a community of people that come from around the country and around the world. And I'm just grateful to tell you all a little bit about it. Thank you.